It's not about being too progressive or being too conservative. It's about having a message.
You need your Morning Joe, weekdays at 6 on MSNBC.
At the hearings, Mueller confirmed that the President of the United States was not totally exonerated. Mueller also agreed that Trump obstructed the investigation multiple times, Russia tampered with the election in Trump's favor, and that the president welcomed that help, lied about welcoming it, and encouraged others to lie about it. In short, boring.
The impact of Trump's reality TV presidency became crystal clear this week when Robert Mueller's testimony was critiqued as a less than stellar performance with lackluster ratings. The media went on and on about Mueller being old and slow. The lifelong civil servant who refused to take the bait, even when being screamed at by Republicans about the dossier, stuck to his report, testifying that Trump was not exonerated of crimes, something the Mueller report repeats not once, but twice, and saying that he could be charged with the felony crime of obstruction of justice after he leaves office. Jaw-dropping moments that took a back seat to Mueller's lack of pizzazz. Joining me now is Clint Watts, MSNBC national security analyst and author of Messing with the Enemy. Naveed Jamali, author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. And Natasha Bertrand of Politico. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to come to you first, Clint, and I'm going to play you some of the critiques of Mueller. Take a listen.
The movie was a snorer, and part of it was, frankly, because Robert Mueller seemed not in control of his brief. He didn't seem in charge.
Not only did Bob Mueller not want to be there, but he didn't have a good grasp of the information that was contained in his report.
There were times in the hearing when he was sharp as a tack, but we can't avoid the fact that there were times in the hearing that he was not. Sometimes they spoke very quickly and they were not particularly polite and respectful of the fact that this was a 74-year-old who obviously
let's ask Garrett,
was having trouble.
So that kind of coverage drove me up the wall watching it. You also had a New York Times piece that said the blockbuster that wasn't. Mueller disappoints the Democrats. The movie America tuned into on Wednesday was not the blockbuster Democrats that had sought, or that Mr. Mueller, the action star, or was Mr. Mueller the action star they had cast. This was not a movie. The United States was attacked by a hostile foreign power, and we are doing theater critiques of Robert Mueller and critiques on his age, when what he said I thought was pretty clear. And I had low expectations going in, honestly. I thought he was darn clear on saying he could not exonerate this man of crimes, and that Russia didn't attack us before, is still attacking us.
Yeah, and he made some very specific comments about WikiLeaks, interactions between the campaign and WikiLeaks, which were very damning. I mean, I think the setup was wrong. They should have done the Russia part 1 first and then gone to the obstruction. It's easier for an audience to understand.
Yeah.
You also know you only have the audience in the first hour, you know, oftentimes publicly.
Right.
It started at 8:30.
Yeah.
That was a great opportunity. But it wasn't surprising to me in many ways because, you know, I've been in briefings with then Director Mueller. He doesn't talk much, right? He's not a talkative person. We haven't heard from him in 2 years. So the expectations were out of whack. But it also, you know, I thought back to when have I seen hearings before? I remember as a kid watching the Iran-Contra hearings. No one wondered what the show was going to be like, right? Like, this wasn't even part of the discussion. And it really speaks to our current environment, which is if you win the crowd, then you win the fight, whether there's any substance behind it or not. And it's really fascinating, the speed, when in real time people are evaluating how he's doing in terms of a performance, when performance art has never been his job. He's there to be reliable. He's there to speak to the report.
Yeah. Does it infuriate you, as somebody who yourself worked with the FBI, that people seem to be ignoring what I thought were blockbuster repetitions? Most people haven't read this thing here. Okay, I've like destroyed mine by dogging it, but when he reiterated it out of his own mouth, and he is such a dignified person, to hear him just say, did you exonerate him? No. That means he potentially committed crimes he could go to prison for.
Right.
That should be jarring in and of itself. Does it infuriate you as somebody who's been in this business to hear people ignore all that and listen to the theater of it?
Yeah, I think it's been going on, though, for a year and a half to 2 years, my frustration, in the sense that it's very clear. The one thing about this is it was a hacking and influence campaign, so it's all out in the open. You know, we always hear it characterized as, there's got to be a lot of secret things. I mean, what's happening in the public is really damning. You know, this is not good. Like,
Yeah.
we don't need a report really to even solve this.
Yeah.
So the frustration that the public doesn't mobilize around what actually happened, it's
Yeah.
more who wins the show. I think that's what I'm most hurt by, 3 years down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Naveed, who's also been in this business as well and dealing specifically with Russia, there were, beyond the Russia piece, there were other revelations I thought were pretty blockbuster. When toward the end, it was almost a throwaway at the end, we found out that, oh, it's not just Russia. There are lots of other countries that were trying to buy their way into our elections. Do you feel like we in general missed that and missed that headline?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that was sort of buried in the lead, but that's exactly it. Look, we know that Paul Manafort and Flynn and a whole bunch of other people in the Trump, orbit had their hand out looking for money. And I think that what we saw is not just the Russians getting into that game, but I worry that the Saudis and others got into here. And look, if you're out there writing a check to a super PAC and that is going to the Trump campaign, and now we have policy that's being shaped by that donation that's pro-Saudi and anti-Iran and driving us closer to war, I mean, that's shocking. But again, the problem here, Joy, that I left with Mueller is that intelligence operations are, as Clint said, a lot of people think that they're secret, but in a lot of ways, we know that Russia was attacking our country. They were after this, and we know what I've said all along, which is Americans help them. The problem is, as we saw, that our laws are antiquated, that in many ways, a lot of the actions here don't rise to the level of criminality, even if they are morally reprehensible. Look, WikiLeaks, for example, just very quickly, WikiLeaks was clearly a dump meant to help Donald Trump. It has no cash value. And as absurd as that sounds, because it has no cash value, that may not be something that you can indict on. Now, if someone had written a $10,000 check, that could be indictable. But it's absurd. Clearly, that was a foreign, hostile act here, and it's not indictable.
Yeah, and the other thing that happened, I think, Natasha, is that you had Republicans, they had their own operation, which was to take what was a hearing about the attack on our election and turn it into a scream fest in which they put up all sorts of other issues that are popular on Fox News. Here it is.
He knows he's innocent. What he's doing is not obstructing justice. He is pursuing justice. And the fact that you ran it out 2 years means you perpetuated injustice.
Having desperately tried and failed to make a legal case against the president, you made a political case instead. You put it in a paper sack, lit it on fire, dropped it on our porch, rang the doorbell, and ran.
The drafting and the publication of some of the information in this report without an indictment, without prosecution, frankly flies in the face of American justice.
Natasha, but beyond how offensive it is to watch these people scream at a Marine veteran war hero like he's a child and go hysterical at him rather than try to help him in defending our country against foreign attack. Beyond that, in your reporting, did Republicans do what they wanted? In their mind, this was about making Robert Mueller what? Look small? Were they trying to destroy it? Like, what was their plan?
We'd always expected that this was going to happen. This was always their line of attack, was just kind of to discredit Mueller and discredit his team and make the entire hearing about the potential biases, quote-unquote biases, of his team. That was expected. But I also think, going back a little bit to this being a little more focused on the theatrics and the substance, I think that we have to also look at what the Democrats had been saying for weeks and weeks leading up to this hearing and what they had been briefing reporters about on background, which was constantly this refrain of people are going to watch the movie, but they're not going to read the book, right? And so we were kind of anticipating this show, and we were anticipating, that Mueller would actually go as far as to read directly from the report, which we found out the day of the testimony that Mueller's team had actually gone to the Democrats and said, we are not going to allow Mueller really, and he doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to read directly from the report. So I think some of the blame here has to be shifted to the expectations that were put on this hearing, even though that was something that Mueller didn't even want to do in the first place.
Yeah, indeed. They could have done the movie. They could have had his entire team sitting next to him to the Democrat side and had them participate in briefing what was in the report, because guys, just because it's called the Mueller report doesn't mean that Mueller wrote all of this.